Well, good morning. State Representative John Patterson here to deliver an update from our capital in Columbus with you, and would like to dive right into the issues. There are a number of issues in the state budget that directly impact the citizens of the 99th District, and I'd like to touch on a few of those. First of all, CAUV reform, current agricultural use valuation, was addressed in the budget. And there is relief coming for our agricultural folks. There were two versions of the relief package. One that the Senate version that was a 3-year phase-in, the House version was a 6-year phase-in. And in the final analysis, the House version was adopted, and we're going to see those changes to the formula, which will impact in a positive way taxation for our agricultural folks. We know it's been out of control, and in fact, if you remember, back in 2014, we here in Ashtabula County spearheaded the CAUV task force, composed of many members of many communities in the county, sent our proposals to Columbus, to the Ohio Department of Taxation, to the Farm Bureau and such, Farmers Union, and a number of those proposals did receive considerable consideration, and end result is that we're going to see that reform being phased in. Second component of the budget that is exciting for everyone is a sales tax holiday. Again, we're going to see that this August and next August. It's a 2-year package this time. Early August, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 0 taxes on any items school-related, as long as there are some restrictions that do apply, and you can check the fine print later. But the idea is to encourage our people, as opposed to going to neighboring Pennsylvania, to buy our school products here, and as a result help our local brick and mortars. Very, very important that we do that, especially in the face. Reality is that the more and more people are shopping online, and I am concerned about the continued sustenance of our brick and mortars and the jobs that those create, and the ripple effect throughout the economy. So whatever we can do to help stimulate local spending right here in the district is something that I support. Another issue that was very dear to me in this budget was the local food coordinator. I was able to tuck away some money in the budget for an experimental pilot program for the entire state of Ohio under the auspices of Ohio State University Extension. And here's how this would work. In conjunction with the Ashtabula County Food Council, it's already functioning. The food hub is up and running. Right now it's geared more towards institutional providers, so that if you were a restaurant, and we've networked with schools and the hospital and the prison in Conneaut. You can order online, it will be delivered right to your doorstep, you can pay online, but it unites the farm community, the producers, with the consumers of a mass quantity, either people in a restaurant or our schools, of course, or the hospitals. But the food hub is up and running. The problem is that we still needed somebody to help coordinate this overall effort. And in the budget, this 2-year program, we will see just that. So I'm really excited about recycling local dollars earned here, spent here, recycled here, and I guess you could think about it as economic fertilizer right here in the county. So pilot program for the state, very happy that that was part of the budget. Some things that weren't in the budget, and I did support the House version. There was not any tax shift, as we have seen in previous budgets. Revenues were down, and the governor had originally intended that there be some additional tax shifts, cutting the income tax, raising the sales tax, raising the severance tax on oil and gas. But in the final analysis, we decided status quo was best, and I think that was wise until we stabilize the ship. The other thing that was even more important, and I do stand with the governor on this one, is the fact that the Medicaid issue that is being debated as we speak here this morning at the federal level, at least at the state of Ohio, there was considerable agreement, both sides of the aisle, that we should continue providing the Medicaid as it has existed for all of us, and that's what we're going to do. The majority party has expressed some concern, and there still could be an override of the governor's veto on that particular, and I want to be straightforward here. Recently, there were 11 veto overrides of the governor's doing in the budget, and that hasn't happened since 40 years ago, to the day. July 6, 1977 was the last time this happened, when Speaker of the House Vern Rife and Jim Rhodes were doing battle. So it took 40 years, and there were only 3 overrides that day. There were 11 earlier this month. But an override can happen at any time during the General Assembly. So until December 2018, we're still holding our breath to see what might happen with respect to Medicaid, not knowing what the federal government is going to do. They're in a state of chaos, and that trickles down to our level. So on this particular issue, we're going to have to stay tuned and see what transpires. But I am deeply concerned. Nationally, I've seen figures ranging from 20-some million to 30-some million people, depending on which version we use, that would be uninsured, put back into the population. I know that there's been concern about Ohioans being tossed off the insurance too. So we'll just have to wait and see and monitor that, and know that I'm deeply concerned about making sure that all Ohioans have access to affordable health care. There's also concern in the western end of the lake of algal blooms this summer. In fact, they're projected to be the 3rd worst since the recording of such events has occurred. I am concerned about that potential because of the over average precipitation we had earlier this spring, and the rainfall amounts continue to be substantial in northwest Ohio. My wife and I were driving back from Milwaukee a couple weeks ago along the Ohio Turnpike, and some of the fields look like swamps, and they've had additional rain since then. So the rain leaches out the phosphorus into the waterways, and then combine that with the hot temperatures that we've experienced recently in July and August, and then everything's there for an algal bloom. Now, I am concerned that given a large algal bloom, that the state might try to overreach. And with that, I mean SB 1 that created some limits in terms of phosphorus loading and manure application in the Western Basin and the tributaries. It's all laid out there, what is constituted as a Western Basin, coupled with the application of man-made fertilizer, that those particular mandates might be instituted throughout the state of Ohio. Now, must keep in mind that, that as phosphorus is our issue in northern Ohio, nitrates are our issue in southern Ohio. And the nitrogen runoff, we had a significant runoff a couple springs ago in the Scioto River watershed that caused the city of Columbus to issue a warning for pregnant mothers not to drink the water. It didn't last long, but the point was it was there nonetheless. So we get the green algal blooms in Lake Erie. It's the Gulf of Mexico, of course, the Ohio River and Mississippi watershed draining the Gulf. So they get the red nitrate blooms. My concern is that sooner or later the federal government will step in and dictate what policy would be with respect to manure, municipal sewers, that sort of thing. I would, and my colleagues, we are in consensus about this, I'd rather be proactive and take the matter into our own hands by a more surgical approach. And to that end, we did form the Phosphorus Task Force a few years ago to monitor our field days that would be impacted by the implementation of SB 1 were it a statewide program. And I can tell you this, if memory serves me correct, February alone of this year, because of the saturation, the snow, the rain, the soil being clay and holding moisture. Memory serves me correct, there would have been 0 days where we could have been able to apply any manure onto fields in this part of the state. And as such, then you either have to store it or get rid of it in some way that is more expensive than simply spreading it on our fields with appropriate ground cover, of course. But it could really put damaging impact on our agricultural sector, and of course our county is indeed wedded to successful agriculture too. So the caveat in all of this is that we have 3 of the cleanest tributaries of all those tributaries in Lake Erie, being the Cognac Creek, the Ashtabula River, the Grand River. The EPA monitors those constantly. Well, my argument would be that as long as our streams are clean and not contributing to the problem, then we must be doing something right. And we are, because we have a wonderful blend of riparian buffer strips, but especially woodland management. Half of Nate Paskey tells me that half of Ashtabula County is in woodlands, and the trees act as wonderful filters for any potential runoff phosphorus or nitrates. And as long as we continue to practice good stewardship with the land in conjunction with economic development, that we have achieved that sweet spot between economic progress and environmental preservation. And for us in the 99th District, we're doing a very admirable job of making that balance work. As a member of the Ohio Legislature, I was invited a few years ago to join, as are all those legislators who border Lake Erie, to join the Great Lakes Caucus under the auspices of the Council of State Governments. This will include our Canadian neighbors to the north, Quebec, Ontario, and members from Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, etc., Pennsylvania. And every year we gather. Now this year we're going to Toronto in September to talk about those issues that are dear to our hearts. Water quality is one of them, invasive species, and I am worried about the Asian carp coming in. But we've been in Milwaukee, we've been in Quebec, and if memory serves me correct, Erie will be the home to this gathering next year. So legislators throughout the Great Lakes, and there are 80, maybe 100 of us on the rolls who care about the Great Lakes, whose districts border the Great Lakes, or who may be slightly inland, but the state borders the Great Lakes, do meet to discuss these issues and share information, and it's a very healthy interchange, and I look forward this year, as I always have, to being part of that conversation and that informational exchange so that we can together address these pertinent issues to all of us. There are a number of other legislative issues that I'd like to share with you that have bubbled to the top of my list. First of all, the spirited ice cream, the bourbon-infused ice cream that was brought to my attention by Joe Erickson at Heavenly Creamery in Conneaut. That indeed was incorporated into the budget. And as such, he will be able to not only produce and sell in limited quantities, 4 pints a day, that particular product from his establishment. But we also tweaked the original idea to allow producers such as Joe to purchase their bourbon from local distillers under Ohio law. The way it was originally proposed, it would have to be the big boys from out of state essentially, but we do have a number within the state of Ohio producing that particular product, and we're able to incorporate that into this legislation. So again, to stimulate Ohio agriculture internally and to allow those dollars to multiply through a value-added type equation. Another bill that I'm working on, very close to introducing now, probably within days, is a school resource officer bill. And I've been working closely with the Frank Hall Foundation out of Chardon. Coach Hall, if you remember, was a teacher who was instrumental in chasing the shooter out of Chardon High School on that tragic day in February 2012. And he has made it his mission and he's brought other people to his mission to ultimately make sure that there's a school resource officer in every school in Ohio and across the nation. But to do that, we had to kind of define what a school resource officer is and what their responsibilities are and what their training might look like. And so this bill not only provides for a definition, it also provides for the required training, and we've worked with the school resource officer organization from Ohio and the nationwide component. We've worked with Safety Force in Ohio, Highway Patrol, the sheriffs and the local police to craft legislation that would decide what sort of training is appropriate and then what the duties of those particular and responsibilities of those individuals might be. So before we can really, and ultimately the issue is getting to the funding of such a position, before we can get to that particular component, we had to define the parameters first. So at this point, this legislation will be introduced late this summer. Within days, I would think, of this particular interview out on the floor so that we can get that passed. And I am always concerned about safety for our students, safety first for all of us, especially our children, our vulnerable children in institutions such as this. And I'm very proud to be a sponsor of this particular piece of legislation. Another piece of legislation that came to my attention and I care deeply about is the Alzheimer's Awareness Month. Now you might say, well, what's the importance of an Alzheimer's Awareness Month? As our population ages, and I'll give you an example, right here in Ashtabula County, by 2030, a third of our population is going to be 60 and older. Now the good news is we're living longer. The potential negative impact of that is that Alzheimer's dementia cases are increasing. And I wanted to raise awareness of this particular challenge that we face so as to attract attention and research dollars and a full-fledged effort to begin to examine how this is going to impact all of us as we grow forward. Every single person that I know of knows of a family member, has a family member, or friend, or somebody who's been impacted by Alzheimer's or dementia. And I've experienced this personally myself, and feel that we need to roll up our sleeves and get to work on this problem, this challenge, I should say, as it impacts all of us, not only in Ohio, but across the nation. And so I'm very pleased to start that effort in the Ohio House with the acknowledgement of Alzheimer's Month. Another piece of legislation that I'm getting close to introducing does impact us directly in terms of economic development, and that would be a STEM debt bill. And let me get into the weeds on this one a little bit. The new jobs in Ohio, the jobs that pay six figures, and indeed across the nation, are those typically, and you can read any publication, involving science, technology, engineering, mathematics. If you look at computer processing, engineering, health engineers, that sort of thing, mechanical engineers, those are the jobs that I would like to help stimulate in Ohio, that create other jobs that produce a wage beyond a living wage that would help raise the boat for everybody. Now let me give you a small example, then I'll come back to this bill. Recently, Ford Motor Company announced that it was going to invest $1 billion in a particular American city to research and to assist in the development of the driverless car, automated automobiles, and we've heard of that. Now, at first blush, you might think Detroit, you might think Seattle, but, and I gave it away, it's Pittsburgh. You might say, why Pittsburgh? Carnegie Mellon University is a world leader in robotics, and because of all that research, Ford wanted to be close to that hub. Well, what does this have to do with Northeast Ohio? We are in the most fertile research crescent of healthcare in the entire world. From Cleveland's University Hospital and the Cleveland Clinic, a swath through Youngstown down to Pittsburgh, UPMC, there are no other facilities in the world, healthcare facilities in the entire world, with the class, with the respect that we do in Northeast Ohio. And I've been in touch with some of the healthcare providers who are doing research with respect to breakthroughs in healthcare, and we have something here that can't be outsourced. Clinic's not moving away, UH isn't moving away, and as the baby boomer population ages, as there's more people on this planet, there's an indeed need for improved health care. So those advancements, the engineering, the science, technology, engineering, mathematics that have to do with health care could be done right here in Northeast Ohio, those six-figure jobs that I was mentioning. But we have to have the workforce to do just that. So this bill would pay directly creditors of those who have gone to college in Ohio, Ohio graduates from Ohio College with a degree in STEM, $2,000 a year for associates, $4,000 for a bachelor's, $8,000 for a PhD, master's, directly to the bank or to the creditor as a way of enticing, incentivizing, if you will, those particular individuals to be here, work in Ohio, and as long as they're in Ohio, that those payments would be made to the creditors. If they leave, the deal is off. There's a clawback procedure to recover those funds should there be an issue there. But the idea is to incentivize our businesses to hire Ohio workers, knowing that they're going to be here, because a lot of these young kids are coming out with massive college debt. Well, we incentivize businesses all the time to locate. Why not incentivize, through this bill, a workforce to stay and work in Ohio, create those jobs, as I said, that pay six figures, that in turn have a ripple effect throughout the local economy. So it may be healthcare in Northeast Ohio, it may be agritech in Northwest Ohio, given their agricultural tendencies. It could be aviation technology in Southwest Ohio, if you think about Wright-Patterson Air Force Base as the leading employer in the entire state of Ohio. And in Southeast Ohio, it may be related to the energy field, with the oil and gas field there, industry growing, and believe it or not, a growing solar industry in Southeast Ohio. I picked up my last two Farm Bureau magazines, and inside the front cover was an advertisement regarding leasing with respect to areas in the field for solar panels and how to go about that. There is considerable interest, and there is a considerable movement in Southeast Ohio with respect to alternative energy. But the research technology, the STEM degrees, with a workforce here in Ohio, could redevelop, recycle, and reinvigorate our economy from the inside out. And at the same time, keeping our young people, who we've lost to the coasts, here to help rebuild us from the inside out. So I'm looking for that bill to be introduced late summer as well. I want to have a robust conversation about it. There may be something I missed. Now, it would be a cap, so we would know the fixed cost, and then it would be prorated if we had more applicants than the money allocated. But the idea would be to stick our toe in the water, see if we can incentivize a workforce to stay in Ohio, to create good paying jobs that we need to help drive our economy forward in the new century. If you think about the manufacturing jobs, a lot of them are automated, and think of the robots on the assembly line. And I appreciate that. I want to get back to the phase prior to the assembly line. Who's designing the robots? Who's designing the computer programs? That's where I think the hot industries are right now, and that's what I'm trying to achieve with this bill.
All right.
Now, I do realize that we have an opioid challenge, and it's not just here in Ashtabula County or the 99th District, it's in the state of Ohio, it's across the United States. And this state budget did allocate $170 million more for opioid treatment, which is really a drop in the bucket compared to It's a start. It's big money, but compared to the crisis, it won't go far enough. And Glen Bay in Rock Creek has expanded their operations there to help address the crisis. Recently, I attended the groundbreaking of the Red Tulip House in Clarendon Township, which is in the 99th District. And similar to the Opal House here in Jefferson, the idea is to help females recover, give them sort of like a three-quarter house where they can recover from addiction and then go on to lead productive lives. It is a problem that has impacted all of us. And not a person out there who doesn't know of some tragedy related to this opioid crisis. And it's robbing us of a generation of young people, although it doesn't necessarily strike the young. I've served on a special task force concerning prescription drug abuse, and we heard reports from grandparents went in for knee replacement, hip replacement, and got hooked on the painkillers and then turned to heroin and the opioids to continue to support their need, their physiological need for that particular drive that was as a result of their treatment and recovery. So where do we go with this? It's a multifaceted, complex issue, but I want to get to the point, where is that particular tipping point where someone who knows that this could be a counterproductive behavior, when you cross that line? I think part of it, and there was research done this spring, a couple of researchers, and you can check this out if you Google this in, deaths, D-E-A-T-H-S, deaths of despair. Researchers were looking at drug overdoses in Appalachia, alcohol abuse in Appalachia, and suicide rates, all above the national average. And part of their research indicates that there is a feeling of hopelessness and helplessness, that our lives aren't getting better. And as a result, they're going to live for today, and part of that is making decisions based on what feels good now. And there are a number of factors involved in this. Part of it is economic, part of it is educational, part of it is cultural. We all know that there are areas of the district that are relics of what they once were. If you talk to the old-timers, they will tell you that Ashtabula downtown was a place to be on Friday night, that you could get a job right out of high school in the 50s, 60s, and 70s in Ashtabula, a job that you would be comfortable in for the rest of your life and take care of your family. And those days are gone, and that insecurity is gone, and our children have moved away, and I understand this, and I'm very sensitive to it. But I come back to this issue of hope. We must have hope in every day that we'll do our best, what we can do today, and then help to create the conditions to make tomorrow better for not only ourselves, but for our loved ones, for our family, for our extended community. And I think part of getting to the root of this opioid epidemic is realizing that we're in transition now. I had a constituent very much concerned with the closing, for example, of the coal docks in Ashtabula. And yes, it's the end of an era, and we lost 23, 24 jobs. But that doesn't mean it has to end. We're already looking at reconfiguring, inventing what that port might look like in the future. There's a whole bright future with liquefied natural gas from our oil and gas fields in eastern Ohio and being used to refuel lake freighters. There was a shortage of LNG ports, for example. That could be part of our overall revitalization of the harbor, both Ashtabula and Conneaut. And in these times of transition, major transition, and we know we have a global economy. When a lot of us were growing up in the 60s, 70s, America was dominant. And part of the reason was the fact that during World War II, so many of the economies were destroyed and rebuilt, and we helped to rebuild, obviously, Japan and Germany. But they've not only caught up to us, but they've moved ahead of us. And we all know that businesses have moved abroad. But I come back to this, especially in our district, and why we ought to be hopeful, and why we can, through our own energy. People say, well, how you doing today? And my comment is, it's a great day. Any day that my feet hit the floor, it's going to be a wonderful day, a day of productivity, a day to serve others. And I want that atmosphere to resonate throughout our district. And I say that for this reason. If you think about our district, no other district has 3 scenic rivers. No other district has 2 deep water ports. In addition to all that, we have an airport that's going to be brand new in a matter of days here. $7 million invested in a runway expansion and refurbishing. A new terminal. We have major north, south, east, west railroad, class 1 railroad for transportation. We have major north, south, east, west highway system in Route 90 and Route 11. We have the Great Lakes. I mean, think what Arizona, California would give to have our water from Lake Erie. We have an abundance of agriculture. We do have good jobs here. We just have to begin to believe in ourselves and have that hope, and pass that hope along to one another and interact with one another, knowing that the road is going to be bumping, but if there's hope, if we live for a purpose beyond ourselves, then I think we would find an atmosphere, an environment, if you will, where there's less incentive to engage in those counterproductive behaviors that so negatively impact our society. So part of it's psychological, part of it's there's some legislation involved, and we begin to really put the screws down on some of the prescription overdoses, and there's more that can be done in terms of recovery, lots more that can be done recovery from those things, but it's going to take all of us to do just that, and I still think that our best days are ahead of us. I was just asked by Mr. West, how do we get that hope started? And my answer to that is one person at a time, that each of us has to make a decision each day that today's going to be a great day. I don't care if it's raining, snowing, I'm going to try to make a difference for one person today, and to make their life better, or to give them, write a card, or send a note, or pick up a phone and call a shut-in, or do some sort of act of civic engagement to know that you care not only about other people, but you care about this society in which we live. It's thanking a veteran. It's saluting the flag as it goes by. It's being civil when we're having those difficult conversations about political aspirations. But if you think of a pebble being thrown into a pond, the ripple effect, it's each of us doing our part as individuals, believing in the hope, believing in a better future that impact others in our immediate vicinity. I'm not asking people to become missionaries and go to far-off Africa or South America, but become a missionary within your own scope of individuals with whom we interact. Our friends, our neighbors, a cheerful smile, an enthusiastic greeting. It's about believing in ourselves and knowing that we're all in this together. We breathe the same air, we drink the same water, we have the same dreams for our kids, a safe, vibrant future where all of us can achieve our fullest God-given potential, whatever that may be. And for some it may be carpentry, for others it may be welding, for others it may be teaching. But to find out where our gifts are and use them to serve others, and by so doing find meaning in our own lives, so that we then feel enriched and can share that enrichment with others. One of our local success stories, and there are many, but based on this notion of a product that can't be outsourced, it's native to our area, is Nate Bissell and his maple syrup business. Now located at the Champion Products, former Champion Products, across from the Ashtabula County Fairgrounds. Used to be an old General Electric plant. In fact, I grew up on West Ashtabula Street, and when my mother was pregnant for me, she worked at the GE plant. so it's very close to my heart. But it was a brownfield, it was vacant, and Nate moved in to process his raw sap into maple syrup. And the reason is quite simple. The natural gas, the infrastructure that was already there, provides a more uniform heat for more efficient usage when it comes to boiling the water out of the sap. And as such, and a variety of other reasons too, expansion, logistics, that sort of thing, Nate has developed a niche market for his maple products, including the bourbon-infused maple syrup and the now rum-infused maple syrup. It's sold various stores. He has caught the attention of a number of people, not only at the state but nationwide. And Nate reached out to members of the Discovery Channel to come and highlight his industry and others in Ashtabula County that are innovators. They were at Crosswinds Grill, and Crosswinds, I know, Geneva on the Lake, is doing, Nate is doing a lot of the local foods. So if you get a chance, and there are other restaurants too, but Crosswinds was featured in this particular report, or will be featured. The idea is, again, grow locally, consume locally, and generate those dollars. But it's very exciting to see what can happen. And believe it or not, the maple industry also impacts our air and water quality. See what's up with that. Well, if you remember, I had mentioned that 50% of our county is in woodlands. Those maple trees not only allow us to create a product that is indeed sold and taxed and creates revenue, but by their very existence, they improve air quality and they also improve water quality by taking nutrients out. So one of the bills that I'm also working on is to incentivize the management of forests, because we do have an invasive species issue, but manage our forests and with an emphasis towards oaks, especially white oaks, red oaks that grow readily well here, can be used in wooden furniture, and the wooden furniture producing capital of the world is in Holmes County, and I think we can do more with that. But also, in addition to the oak, it's the maples that produce the syrup that can't be grown, the trees can't be grown just anywhere, but that can help in this value-added concept of agriculture. Native to our region, do well here, can produce those sorts of jobs. So that model that Nate has developed can be, I feel, replicated in other areas that could help us in terms of our economic development with an eye towards the future for a more productive and sustainable economic pathway for the 99th District. If you're interested in seeing me personally, I have office hours at various times and places throughout the districts of the month. You can look at the website to get confirmation, but essentially the first Monday of the month I'm in Conneaut at the Human Resource Center there on Mill Street from 1 to 2:30. The second Monday of the month I'm at the Chardon Public Library, local level, from 1 to 2:30. The third Friday of the month I'm at the Geneva Senior Center on Route 20 from 10 to 11:30. And then the fourth Monday of every month I'm at the Ashtabula City Library from 12:30 to 2 o'clock. And in those weird months where there is a fifth Monday, and sometimes in addition to that, I'm at the Kingsville Library from 10:30 to noon. But check your local listing on that one. So definitely available for you, and would like to meet with you. You can walk in. You don't need an appointment, but always here to listen because I care deeply about our district. I care deeply about all of our constituents. And I feel strongly that by representing all of you to the best of my abilities, that the entire future of the 99th together will be stronger for that. I wish you a safe and happy summer. My goodness, here we are at the latter part of July. School will be starting in just a few weeks. The fair is almost upon us. So be safe, be happy, be hopeful, and we'll be in touch. Thank you.